Hey, welcome to part two of part two. Sorry for the interruption, but a lot of material, and I want to make sure that we cover the essentials. So we're going to finish off the configuration. We only have a couple of steps left to go, and then we'll focus on connecting up a phone number, logging in. We'll take a look at the CCP. Um, we'll take a look at CloudWatch and maybe even look at some metrics and reporting. So adding users and routing profiles will be the next configuration activity. So routing profiles and users are tied together. And basically the function of a routing profile is to couple a user with the queues and or channels that you expect them to participate in. So you might have one user who is a member of the support team and another user who is a member of the sales team. And you might have a user who is going to take calls from both. So to do that, we have to configure the routing profiles. The routing profiles will define the channels, whether it's voice, chat, email, tasks, um, what queue that routing profile will address. When they make an outbound phone call, what caller ID will be displayed? Now, generally, the caller ID is displayed on a queue by queue basis. So in our little call center here, sales might have one phone number and support might have another. If I'm a user in a routing profile in which I get calls for both sales and support, if I make an outbound phone call, what caller ID should be exhibited, sales or support. And tags are very useful to help track resources, especially in your metrics. On the user management side, you're going to add a first name and a last name, and you're going to create a login. I should point out that login is case sensitive, so the first time a user says they can't log in, you can bet that they're logging in with lowercase when it should be uppercase or uppercase when it should be user case. Now, depending on the type of user database that was configured, you'll remember the discussion up front about local database versus SSO versus, Google or Office 365. Usually in that case, your login is going to be generally an email address. But in our example here, we're going to have a first name, last name. We'll issue a login name. We'll configure an email. Security profile is how we determine whether this is an agent or an administrator. There are a couple of other attributes besides admin and agent, but generally you're going to have a security profile that dictates what resources you have in the system. You're going to be assigned to a routing profile that we just discussed. You're going to declare whether you have a phone that is a USB headset, maybe, or a desk phone. And that's where that's going to be defined. We have something called after call work. When an agent wraps up a phone call, how much time do we want to give them before we ram another phone call down their throat? So that's what a after call or after call work time is. That's a timer. Proficiency and hierarchies are, we'll touch on them briefly, but generally they're configuration parameters that we will explore in greater detail later on when we begin to enhance the capabilities of this basic call center. We'll also look at adding agent status, so an agent logs in and they log out. I would point out you want your agents to log in at the beginning of a shift, log out at the end of the shift. During the period between that, the system is going to track their time. So I logged in at 8, and then I maybe went to lunch, came back from lunch. The point being that you don't want them to log in and log out multiple times in one shift. You want them to log in and out only once per shift. Between time, their time is either going to be available, meaning I'm sitting here waiting for a phone call, or it's going to be in some non-routable mode, like you might have a code for meeting or a code for break. Offline will reduce your head count and affect your metrics. So it's very important from a statistical and a metrics. In most call centers, this becomes the bread and butter, right? We want to understand how we're utilizing the resources we have, the human resources. We want to know how many people were logged in that day and how they spent their time. And then lastly, we'll configure quick connects, which are basically speed dial buttons that enable you to transfer to an agent or transfer a caller to a queue or transfer to an external resource. So let's go ahead and get these options configured. Before you add users, you want to create your routing profiles. And if we go to routing profiles, you'll see that the system has a default routing profile. I recommend that you use this only for testing. I assign all my queues to the basic routing profile. And when I'm testing, I just assign my agent to the routing profile that contains all of these queues. And in that way, I don't have to worry about which queue I'm logged into when I'm testing. So we're going to go ahead and add a routing profile for the sales team. Okay, and this is going to be agents who take sales calls only. And in this example, we're only configured for voice. If we were configured for other channels, which we will do later on, we will want to enable those channels. Also, you might have a routing profile that's only chat, for example, but here you get to decide we're creating a sales profile and it's going to be for voice. And while this person is on the voice, they can handle no other channels. So you might have it such that they are allowed to handle other channels, for example, chat and email. And so we'll go ahead and add that the sales queue, and we're enabling it. We're only going to enable it at this point for we only have voice. We haven't configured task or email yet. And the default queue, when I make an outbound phone call, use the phone number associated with the sales team. Generally, incoming calls are going to be sent to the agent who has been idle the longest. So if I make an outbound phone call, will that change my time for calculating this value? And you can set this and say, continue to count them as having been available. Let's go ahead and save that. And let's add the support. And this is agents that handle support only. Come on. I can't talk and type apparently. Okay, so once again, it's a voice channel. We're going to say it's the support and use the support number when you make an outbound call. Okay, let's create one more. We're going to add sales and support and agents who take both calls. And once again, it's a voice channel, and we'll go ahead and select support. Go ahead and save that. Whoop, couldn't save it. But see the error below. What's your, oh, you forgot to select your outbound. And we want to use support when we make an outbound. Okay, so at this point, let us go ahead and add a user. So we'll go here, add new user, and we're going to add another hobbit to the table here, Bilbo Baggins, and his login is going to be BILBO. Notice that it is case sensitive, so when he logs in, he better look this way. His email address, and you got to give him a password, verify it, and his security profile. This is where we're going to select whether he's an admin, an agent, a call center manager, or quality analytics. Admins, godlike privileges, they can do everything. Agents are a limited subset. Call center managers typically are able to make modifications to call flows. Quality analysis are basic people that can access reports. Next thing is the routing profile. So we're going to put him in the sales and support queue. He's going to take phone calls for both sales and support. And there's a box here for auto answer accept. Um, I wouldn't recommend this. What this means is a call sent to this agent's desktop. If they're available, it's just going to switch their phone on. Heaven help you if he went off to a break. Now your customer's talking to an empty chair, so be careful of that. After call work, I'm going to generally, as a default, I just set it to 30 seconds. Maybe it needs to be 3 minutes. It depends on the nature of the business. This is a support queue. I'm guessing that it probably takes a little time at the end of a phone call for him to wrap up paperwork and update the ticket and all of that nonsense. Agent hierarchy, again, we'll talk about that. Some other configuration along with proficiencies, which I'll summarize, are just basically skills that you can assign and value. The tech support team, for example, might have a guy who specializes in PCs and another guy who specializes in Macs, and you want to route calls accordingly. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. So at this point, we've configured our routing profiles. We've got some agents. And I think the next thing we want to take a look at is creating some agent status. And the way we're going to do this is by noticing that the only way you're going to get a phone call is if you're available. If you're offline, you're basically not connected to the system for metric and statistical reporting purposes. I'm going to go ahead and add the usual ones are meeting and let's say break. Now, you can create all you want here, but at the end of the day, the only time this person's going to get a phone call is when they're in the available mode. But keep in mind that they logged in and logged out at the end of the day. During the between times, their time is being counted as available, or they were talking, they were on a phone call, or they're in some non-routable state, and all of this is reportable. Okay. The next thing we want to do is go check for, let me see, users. Let's go find our quick connects. Come on, where do we put quick connects? Quick responses? No. Oh, it's probably routing. Okay, quick connects, routing, makes sense. Okay, let's go ahead and add some quick connects. Now, a quick connect is the way that we can transfer a call to a agent, a queue, or let's give this a name, agent transfer. It's going to be a user. We're going to search for user Belladonna Baggins. Actually, we should use her name, right? And the flow is the default agent transfer. Now, this is one of those system defaults. We could go look at exactly what this does, and we may in fact want to change it, but for purposes of this basic configuration, we're just going to go ahead and accept that. We're not going to add any tags. So we just created a quick connect for Bella. Let's go ahead and add a quick connect for a user. We'll do another user here, Bilgo Baggins. And go ahead and save that. And you get the you get the now let's do one for a queue. Now we have two queues, so we want to someone calls in to the sales department, and what they really wanted was the uh, support department. And this will enable you to transfer the call uh, to the support department. Okay, so the next thing you have to do is go back to queues, and you have to assign your quick connects down here. You just go through here and select the quick connects that you want associated with that queue. This is sometimes a little annoying to configure, but that's how you do it. Quick connects. All right, did these guys. Let's do sales. Okay, so at this point, I think we've we've completed our basic configuration, and now we're getting ready to test. So what we need to do, first of all, is go to our phone numbers, and we're going to take this phone number, and we have to point it at the contact flow called main greeting. So when we dial this phone number now, we're going to come in to the main greeting. And let's go ahead and get that tested. Okay, you will remember that when we started out and we were on the AWS Cloud Console, before we entered the contact center itself, I pointed out that this was the access URL that your users would be required to have in order to log in. So we're going to be testing with this phone number. It's set to ring the main greeting, but we need to go get ourselves an agent. So I'm going to pop open a different browser because if I tried to log in, it would log me in as this user, the system administrator. We don't want that. We want to be a plain vanilla user. So I'm going to open another browser, and I'm going to put that link in here. And this is what that login looks like. Let's try Bilbo Baggins. Okay, so understand that I believe he's just an agent. Here he is up here in the right corner. And what we're going to do, the first test is we'll use the contact control panel. So you can see what that looks like. You click on that and it's going to bring up this. It's going to ask you to allow the use of the microphone. Um, as you can see, phone number, you've got settings here. Um, we're connected to a headset. It's not a desk phone. Okay, we can go ahead and make ourselves available. And I've got another handset over here for purposes of testing, and I'm going to call our main number now. So you'll see the call here. This is me making the outbound call. Thanks for calling. Press 1 for sales or 2 for tech support. I'm going to press 1. So you can see the call is ringing in. Okay, so when I answered that, I hear a little whisper in my ear, the agent that is, that says sales. It's the default for the system. It's called the agent whisper, and it enables you to announce to the agent which queue the caller came in on. That's the default mode. Again, you can modify the default to provide other information. So at this point, I can put the call on hold. I can mute. I can access my number pad, and I can bring up my quick connects because if this person was really wanted to talk to support or Belladonna here, I could transfer the call. So that's what the call looks like in a CCP, and it appears to have worked as defined, designed. So let me go ahead and hang up. Now in this instance, the customer hung up, and you'll see here I'm still in after call work over here. I can force this I can bypass the timer that, as you recall, was set for 30 seconds just by go ahead and closing the contact. Okay. We can do the same thing with the agent workspace. Now the workspace for this configuration is not going to be particularly useful. Let me see, is that other one still open here someplace? Can't have them both open. Yes, let's close that one. Um, and I guess we're still available. I'm going to go ahead and place that same call back in here. This is the customer calling in again. So you can see the call is ringing in. I'm going to go ahead and accept the call. There's an option to reject it, but I'm going to go ahead and accept it. Once again, I get the whisper that says support, and I can see information about the call. What the phone number was that calls. Over here, we're getting a customer profile and cases, which we'll talk about as we enhance the configuration. So this is pretty much verified that our configuration is working. Let's take a look at how quick connects look here. Okay, super. And the customer is now going to hang up. And once again, we go into after call work, and I can go ahead and I'm eager to get back to work, so I bypass the timer, and here we go. So that's good news. Now, what I'd like to show you is several ways of looking at that phone call. If you go back, okay, keep in mind, this is the agent's dashboard, and this agent has, uh, let me see, I logged in as Bilbo. I don't think that's an administrator. I think it's just an agent. So I want to make sure that we're looking at someone with administrative capabilities. So I'm going to go back to the default here. Under analytics, we can go to contact search. And what this will enable us to do is see any phone calls that came in uh, during a particular period. You can go ahead and set this range. Uh, but this is our first phone call, so that's all we got. If there was a recording, you'll be able to play the recording. Other things you can do are look at real-time metrics for queues, agents, and profiles. Queues, we can see here's our queues, support and sales. We can see we got one agent online, and you'll see useful information about that. You can go ahead and add the agents. And right now we only have one agent logged in. And you can see their current status. You can change their status. So there's useful information here. But what I want you to recall is that back in flows, if we went back to you'll recall that one of the first things we did was to turn on logging, right? Set logging behavior enabled. So when this happens, this is one of those situations in which you need to be an administrator, not just of the system, the Amazon Connect instance, but of the console as well. So here we are back in the AWS console. And what we want to do here is go to CloudWatch. Everything's named Cloud. So there we go. So we'll click on CloudWatch. We'll go to logs, log groups, and we should see our call center. Here it is, the DrVoIP demo. And when we log in there, we can see two phone calls that have happened. You can see the date and time. Understand that logs are based on UTC time, not local time, so keep that in mind. Let me see, used to be able to set the time to local, but I don't see that option. So at any rate, what I want you to be aware of is I can click on this phone call here, and what it's going to do is show me everything about that phone call, right? The call came in, it was issued a contact ID. Every event in the system, every contact, whether it's email or voice, is going to get a unique contact ID that will stay with it for the length of that communication. So here you can see that it came into a contact flow named main greeting, that the module type is set logging behavior, and you'll see here that the parameter that we set was to enable it. And then what happened to that call? Well, it advanced. It went to the set voice step, and the voice step was Matthew, and then the next thing it did was go to the set recording button, and so forth. Now, you're going to go through this process, and from time to time, you'll see a big red flag that says error. Well, when it says error, you'll now be able to see where it errored exactly, and you'll be able to see parameters associated with that failure. So CloudWatch is an indispensable tool for troubleshooting. And again, the only problem is that you will need permissions in both the Amazon Connect instance as well as in the AWS cloud, or you're going to have to work with your IT team who probably has these permissions. So that pretty much wraps up this basic configuration. In the next set of videos, we'll begin to improve this configuration. We'll make it a little bit more sophisticated. We'll look at more features. We'll add more channels, and you'll see how the various components of Amazon Connect work together to achieve your call center vision. Hope you found this informative, and I thank you for viewing.